The destruction of an Eldar Craftworld means a permanent extinction of an entire culture that survived for over 10,000 years. These Craftworlds hold the souls of trillions of dead Eldar in crystalline matrices, making them the most valuable targets in the entire Warhammer 40k universe. From the famous 5 major Craftworlds to mysterious ones like Ulthwé that returned from the warp after millennia being lost, this guide covers them all. What secrets do these dying but defiant civilizations hold? Discover why Warhammer players argue so passionately about these ancient vessels, and perhaps find your own favorite among them. The Fall. Why Craftworlds exist. What if I told you the entire Eldar race nearly wiped itself out through what was basically a galaxy-wide murder orgy? Well, I'm not even exaggerating here. The Eldar, who once dominated the stars as the most advanced species in existence, basically partied themselves into oblivion. And by parties, I mean activities that would make the most depraved human behaviors look like a children's tea party. Long before mankind built its first spaceship, the Eldar ruled a vast empire spanning thousands of worlds. They had conquered disease, mastered technology beyond our comprehension, and harnessed psychic powers that would reshape reality itself. With their incredibly long lifespans and unmatched intellect, they reached heights no other species could dream of. They had millions of years to perfect their civilization. No enemies could challenge them. No problems existed they couldn't solve. They were gods among the stars. This godhood became their downfall. A species that has everything faces the ultimate challenge: purpose. With no mountains to climb or frontiers to conquer, they encountered soul-crushing boredom. The Eldar, with nothing left to strive for, turned inward, seeking new sensations, new experiences, ways to feel something in their increasingly empty existence. Their pursuit of stimulation evolved from artistic expression and celebration into something darker. Ordinary pleasures became insufficient. Their natural psychic sensitivity meant they experienced emotions far more intensely than humans, driving them to chase these feelings with alarming dedication. Pleasure cults formed throughout their empire, each developing increasingly extreme practices. Some Eldar recognized the approaching catastrophe. While the majority descended into depravity, a small fraction saw the warning signs of collapse. These became the first Craftworlders, those who looked at their society's trajectory and decided to escape. They built massive spacefaring vessels the size of continents, packed with everything needed to preserve their civilization away from the madness consuming their homeworlds. These enormous arcs were technological marvels, self-sustaining ecosystems designed to support millions of Eldar indefinitely. They contained vast biodomes, cities, libraries housing millennia of knowledge, and at their hearts, the infinity circuits, psychic networks that would protect their souls after death. Many dismissed these Eldar as paranoid doomsayers. Few heeded their warnings. Then came the Fall. The collective psychic energy of billions of Eldar engaging in extreme acts created a disturbance in the warp. The parallel dimension of pure psychic energy. This disturbance grew, feeding on the excesses of the Eldar Empire until it coalesced into something new, a fully formed chaos god. Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, was born in a single cataclysmic moment. The burst scream of Slaanesh tore through the galaxy. In an instant, trillions of Eldar died, their souls devoured by the very god their actions had created. The epicenter of the Eldar Empire collapsed into the warp, creating the massive reality tear known as the Eye of Terror, a wound in space-time that exists to this day. Only those who had fled on the Craftworlds, hiding in the furthest reaches of space, survived the apocalypse. Survival came with a terrible price. The Eldar discovered that Slaanesh continued to hunger for their souls even after death. Any Eldar who died would have their soul instantly pulled into the warp to be eternally tortured and consumed by the god they had created. This existential terror transformed Craftworld society overnight. This is where the past system came from, the rigid spiritual discipline that now defines Craftworld life. Craftworld Eldar chose a single path to follow, be it the path of the warrior, the artist, the seer, or dozens of others. They focus entirely on this aspect of life, mastering it completely before moving to another path. This compartmentalization prevents them from experiencing the dangerous extremes that led to their downfall. Each Craftworld drifts through the void, carrying the last remnants of a once mighty civilization. They're like islands of Eldar culture in a hostile universe, each developing its own traditions and philosophies in isolation. The Craftworlds themselves are works of art, massive constructions of psychically reactive wraithbone that responds to the emotions and needs of its inhabitants. They're living entities, growing and changing over millennia as their populations evolve, containing vast crystal domes housing forests, mountains, and cities designed to remind the Eldar of the homeworlds they lost. Ulthwé, Prophets of Doom. Among these drifting worlds of psycho-reactive material, one Craftworld has taken what might seem like the most suicidal strategy imaginable, parking themselves right next to the greatest cosmic wound in existence. Craftworld Ulthwé orbits perilously close to the Eye of Terror, that swirling hellscape where reality and the warp bleed together. It's like building your house on the slopes of an active volcano that occasionally spews demons instead of lava. This proximity to danger wasn't some random navigational error. Ulthwé's position serves a strategic purpose that has shaped their entire civilization. Living under the constant shadow of chaos has forced them to become masters of foresight and prophecy. When annihilation lurks just beyond their doorstep, predicting the future becomes less of a mystical art and more of a survival necessity. The constant psychic pressure from the Eye has produced more powerful farseers on Ulthwé than anywhere else in the galaxy. These psychers wade neck-deep through branching timelines, manipulating events across thousands of worlds to ensure their people's survival. While other Craftworlds might have a handful of these powerful seers, Ulthwé has developed an entire council of them, collectively known as the Seer Council, who coordinate their visions to guide their civilization through the treacherous currents of fate. You can spot Ulthwé Eldar immediately by their distinctive black and bone-colored armor, a color scheme that perfectly reflects their grim outlook. This isn't some fashion statement, it's a manifestation of their cultural mindset. Other Craftworlds often mistake the somber aesthetic for pessimism or fatalism, but that's missing the point. Ulthwé wears black because they stare into the abyss daily and refuse to blink. Their military doctrine is equally distinctive. While Craftworlds like Biel-tan maintain large standing armies of aspect warriors, Ulthwé relies on something far more surgical: the Black Guardians. These aren't standard civilian militia. Due to constant chaos incursions, Ulthwé's citizens receive far more combat training than those of other Craftworlds. During a notable chaos incursion on Huracan Prime, a squad of only 12 Black Guardians materialized from the webway portals precisely as cultist forces broke through the Imperial lines. Within moments, their perfectly placed fire collapsed the enemy advance, allowing Imperial defenders to regroup and ultimately save the planet, all because Ulthwé's farseers had foreseen this critical juncture weeks before. At the center of this web of fate stands Eldar Ulthran, the most powerful and notorious farseer in Eldar history. This ancient psyker has manipulated events across the galaxy for over 10,000 years, playing a cosmic chess game where entire species serve as pieces. His mastery of divination is so profound that he can perceive cause and effect relationships across millennia. When he led Ulthwé forces to seal the Chaos Primarch Magnus the Red on the planet of sorcerers, he returned to the Craftworld bearing psychic scars that resonated through their collective consciousness. The ritual cost the lives of 17 revered seers, a sacrifice that continues to be commemorated in solemn ceremonies, reminding every citizen of Ulthwé that their survival demands terrible prices. The constant state of war readiness has also forced Ulthwé to adapt their approach to the path system that governs Eldar society. While other craftworlds insist on rigid adherence to a single path at a time, Ulthwé's citizens often find themselves skipping between multiple disciplines as necessity demands. A scholar might need to become a warrior at a moment's notice, then shift to artillery specialist when the tides of battle change. This flexibility would be considered dangerously close to the lack of discipline that once doomed their species. But, for Ulthwé, it's simply pragmatic adaptation to their unique circumstances. This perpetual proximity to danger has molded Ulthwé's entire cultural identity. Their art, architecture, and even casual conversation are infused with a unique blend of fatalism and determined resistance. They weaponize their acceptance of mortality, turning it into a source of courage rather than despair. Perhaps most fascinatingly, Ulthwé has developed a culture of calculated sacrifice. Their Farseers actively analyze which losses are acceptable to secure the greater survival of their people. This clinical approach to weighing lives against outcomes can seem cold to outsiders, but it's this ruthless pragmatism that has kept them alive in the shadow of oblivion for 10 millennia. In the great game of galactic chess, Ulthwé sees 10,000 moves ahead. Biel-tan, the Warrior Kings. If Ulthwé represents the calculating mind of the Eldar, the Biel-tan embodies their warrior spirit in its most aggressive form. Draped in green and white, colors symbolizing both growth and death, this craftworld wages war to reclaim an empire that most believe died millennia ago. The very name, the rebirth of ancient days, serves as a mission statement for an entire civilization that refuses to fade quietly into extinction. While other craftworlds might content themselves with preserving what little remains of their culture, Biel-tan has chosen a far more dangerous path. They actively hunt down and eliminate any non-Eldar species who dare to occupy worlds that once belonged to their ancient empire. This represents a calculated campaign of reconquest with particular focus on the maiden worlds specifically seeded by the ancient Eldar for future colonization. The military mind of Biel-tan revolves around their aspect warriors, elite specialists who embody different facets of their war god Cain. What makes them unique is how they've organized these warriors into formal warrior houses, creating the most formidable fighting force among all craftworlds. These houses form the backbone of the Sword Wind, their primary military doctrine emphasizing lightning-fast strikes designed to overwhelm enemies before they can properly respond. Their approach pairs perfectly with highly mobile vehicles, allowing Biel-tan forces to dictate exactly when and where battle will be joined. Following the infamous purge of Varnos IV, where 3 warrior houses cleansed an entire Orc-held continent in under a week, their reputation for ruthless efficiency spread across the galaxy, reinforcing their commitment to reclaiming their ancient glory. Their Council of Exarchs, aspect warriors consumed by the path of the warrior who can never leave it, guides Biel-tan's military strategy. Having walked the warrior's path for centuries, these battle-hardened leaders have perfected the art of warfare, though the single-minded focus comes at a cost. Diplomatic solutions rarely enter their strategic calculations, and compromise is seen as a weakness when dealing with lesser races occupying what they view as their birthright. The Swordwind's effectiveness stands from its combination of elite skill and technological superiority. Their distinctive Wave Serpent and Falcon Grav tanks provide unmatched mobility. The Void Spinner stands as their most terrifying weapon, a super-heavy gravity tank wielding a monofilament cannon that kills enemies while sterilizing the ground itself, making it devastating against expansionist species like the Orcs. Biel-tan's hatred for Orcs borders on obsession, and with good reason. Unlike other races who might be negotiated with or pushed away from Eldar territories, Orcs represent a completely expansionist threat whose occupation quickly becomes permanent. Once an Orc infestation takes root on a world, especially a former maiden world, the green-skinned invaders become nearly impossible to fully eradicate without the specialized sterilization technologies Biel-tan has developed. The single most catastrophic event in Biel-tan's recent history came during the events known as the Gathering Storm. As Ennead, the Eldari god of the death, stirred to partial consciousness in the 41st millennium, the psychic backlash literally split the Craftworld in two. This was an existential wound to the heart of their civilization, a physical manifestation of the fracturing of their imperial dreams. Now, the broken halves of Biel-tan drift through space, accompanied by the Incarn, a special avatar of their own death god. This psychic phenomenon represents both destruction and potential rebirth, mirroring Biel-tan's own philosophy. Despite this devastating blow, the warrior houses of the Swordwind continue their campaigns of reconquest with even greater urgency. When Biel-tan targets a world for cleansing, they deploy overwhelming force for a single, decisive strike. The Swordwind arrives, strikes with devastating precision, and withdraws before the enemy can mount an effective counterattack. This approach minimizes casualties among their irreplaceable aspect warriors, while maximizing the psychological impact of their assaults. The fundamental paradox of Biel-tan lies in their diminishing population that cannot sustain major losses, making each warrior's life precious despite their aggressive stance. They must risk everything to reclaim their empire while avoiding extinction in the process, a nearly impossible balance to maintain, especially after the physical fracturing of their home. The warrior houses preserve ancient fighting traditions that might otherwise be lost, creating warriors with specialized skills and broad tactical understanding, a significant advantage over the more rigidly specialized forces of other races. Lyanden, the Ghost Warriors. From golden prosperity to a ship of ghosts, Lyanden's transformation is the stuff of nightmares. What force could possibly be so devastating that it would drive an advanced civilization to animate their dead ancestors just to survive? The answer lies in the ravenous shadow of Hive Fleet Kraken, and a desperate last stand that forever changed what it means to be alive on this once proud Craftworld. Picture Lyanden in its prime. Gold and blue vessels gliding through the stars, housing the largest Eldar population in existence. The colors represent the pinnacle of prosperity and wisdom. The halls echoed with music, art flourished in spiraling galleries, and Lyanden stood as a living proof that the Eldar could thrive despite the catastrophe of the fall. Their society flourished like a luminous star, unaware it would soon collapse into darkness. Then came 992.M41, a date that would become synonymous with devastation. Hive Fleet Kraken, a tendril of the galaxy-consuming Tyranid menace, set its sights on the jewel of Eldar civilization. The bioships darkened the void around Lyanden like a plague of locusts blotting out the sun, and wave after wave of chitinous horrors poured into the Craftworld's elegant corridors. Despite their technological superiority and technical genius, Lyanden's defenders were overwhelmed by the Tyranid assault. The Guardians fell by the thousands. Aspect warriors were torn apart. Even the mighty Wraith Guard couldn't stem the tide. As the casualties mounted, the Craftworld faced an unprecedented crisis. There weren't enough living Eldar left to defend what remained. This is where Lyanden's story takes a dark turn. The surviving Spirit Seers, psychic specialists who commune with the dead, made a decision that would forever alter their culture. In desperation, they began a mass awakening of Wraith constructs on a scale never before attempted. One young Spirit Seer, still bleeding from battle, placed trembling hands on her father's spirit stone, tears falling as she summoned him back to war. The pain in her eyes reflected thousands of similar moments throughout Lyanden, each awakening both a reunion and a violation of natural order. Each Wraith Guard and Wraith Lord contained the soul of an Eldar ancestor, pulled from their peaceful rest in a spirit stone and thrust back into the material realm. The constructs moved with unnatural grace, their soulless eyes glowing as they advanced against the Tyranid swarms. The halls that once rang with conversation now echoed with the heavy footfalls of ghost warriors guided by the whispered commands of Spirit Seers. As the Tyranids pushed deeper into Lyanden's heart, a controversial figure from their past arrived at this crucial moment. Prince Iriel, once the High Admiral of Lyanden's fleet before being exiled for reckless actions, returned with his Corsair fleet, the Eldritch Raiders. He led a counterattack that would become legend, wielding the Spear of Twilight, a weapon that slowly drained the life force of whoever wielded it. The prince who had abandoned his home now sacrificed his very essence to save what remained of it. The battle reached its apex as Iriel drove his cursed spear into the heart of the Hive Tyrant leading the assault. A blow so powerful, it caused the creature to experience pain. This advantage allowed Lyanden's combined forces of the living, the dead, and the returned exiles to push back the invaders. But victory came too late to save Lyanden's former glory. When the bioships finally retreated, Lyanden had been transformed. The population had been reduced by approximately 90%. Entire sections of the Craftworld lay in ruins. Most disturbing was a new demographic reality. The silent ghost warriors now outnumbered the living Eldar. Today, Lyanden drifts through the Segmentum Ultima, near the borders of the Tau Empire. The gold and blue corridors that once symbolized prosperity now seem like a cruel irony. The few living Eldar focus enormous resources on training spirit seers, who serve as both military commanders and spiritual guides to the Wraith constructs. Some other Craftworlds view these practices with suspicion, even referring to Lyanden's spirit seers as necromancers. What makes Lyanden's story so compelling is how they've adapted to catastrophe. Their world ruin translates to light in the darkness, an aspiration with new meaning in the aftermath of devastation. Craftworld that once represented the highest achievements of Eldar civilization now embodies their most fundamental trait, the tenacity to survive at any cost. Saim-Hann, the Wild Riders. From the solemn halls of Ghost Warriors, we shift to the howling, blood-red blur of Craftworld Saim-Hann. What would happen if you took space elves, already known for their grace and speed, and built an entire culture around going even faster and fighting even harder? The answer is simultaneously brilliant and terrifying to everyone unfortunate enough to stand in their way. While most Craftworlds embrace the rigid path system after the fall, Saim-Hann took a wildly different approach. They organized their entire society around the Wild Rider clans, ancient kinship groups that predate the cataclysm that nearly wiped out their species. These clans form the fundamental building blocks of Saim-Hann culture, complete with their own traditions, symbols, and family feuds spanning millennia. The clan structure follows a feudal hierarchy with leadership positions passing through hereditary bloodlines. The family closest to the clan chief forms the kinsman, a ruling elite maintaining order within this passionate society. When the Eldar describe your customs as primitive and dangerous, you know you're doing something differently. Imagine a society where your social standing depends on how fast you can pilot a jet bike through death-defying obstacle courses while shooting enemies with pinpoint precision. That's Saim-Hann. Their culture values individual skill and daring, with accomplished jet bike riders achieving celebrity status throughout the Craftworld. The wild host of Saim-Hann streaks across battlefields like crimson lightning bolts. There one moment, gone the next. Their military forces zoom ahead almost entirely on jet bikes, with ground troops transported in wave serpents to maintain their relentless pace. Their blood-red color scheme, accented with black, white, or yellow markings, reflects their fiery spirit and the blood ties binding their society. Combat doctrine? Beautifully simple. Hit hard, hit fast, vanish. Wild Riders strike with devastating precision, then withdraw before enemies can comprehend what happened. They slice through defensive lines, splinter formations, and disappear into the void. Their tactics leverage sheer speed and maneuverability to outflank and overwhelm opponents who rarely get a chance to react. The ancient clan system carries with it something that makes other Craftworlds clutch their spirit stones in horror: clan feuds. These conflicts, rooted in traditions older than the fall itself, simmer for centuries before occasionally boiling over. Yet, even these disputes follow structured patterns, typically settled through ritual combat and skill contests where honor matters more than bloodshed. This practice of controlled conflict preserves warriors' skills while preventing the society from tearing itself apart. Ancient wisdom serving modern survival needs. Each clan bears unique personal symbols and traditions, creating visual and cultural diversity absent in more uniform Craftworlds. This apparent chaos actually preserves some of the most ancient Eldar traditions lost to other, more rigidly structured societies. The clan system provides both cultural identity and tactical flexibility that has kept Saim-Hann alive through millennia of threats. Saim-Hann means quest for enlightenment in the Eldar tongue. Their world rune, a stylized cosmic serpent, embodies their philosophy of warfare: strike with deadly precision, then vanish before retaliation. This symbol represents both their tactical approach and their spiritual outlook. Their independent streak extends to external relations. Saim-Hann typically avoids entanglement in broader Eldar conflicts, focusing instead on preserving their traditions. But when truly needed, they appear with devastating effect. During the Imperial Siege of Alaitoc Craftworld, Saim-Hann Wild Riders shattered the Imperial blockade without warning, demonstrating that despite their tribal customs, they recognize kinship with other Eldar in times of crisis. Saim-Hann maintains close connections with Exodite worlds, Eldar who settled on planets rather than traveling through space. This relationship makes perfect sense given the similarities in their cultures, both embracing more primal lifestyles than their aesthetic cousins. This alliance of the passionate fringes of Eldar society provides mutual protection in a galaxy increasingly hostile to their kind. Alaitoc, the Silent Watchers. Switching gears completely from the Wild Riders of Saim-Hann, we encounter the cool blue and yellow halls of Alaitoc, where discipline is so intense that many Eldar choose exile over conformity. But here's the fascinating paradox. This exodus of talent isn't a failure of their system. It's actually their entire strategy, and quite possibly the smartest approach any Craftworld has developed. Alaitoc stands out among Craftworlds for its extraordinarily rigid interpretation of the path system. Their culture demands perfect adherence to the rules, making even other Eldar societies look relaxed by comparison. The blue and yellow colors adorning their warriors symbolize vigilance and enlightenment, reflecting a society built on watchfulness and careful knowledge gathering. This extreme social pressure creates a powerful dynamic. Young Eldar with independent streaks often leave Alaitoc entirely, becoming wandering rangers who roam the stars while maintaining their connection to home. This symbiotic relationship benefits both. Rangers gain freedom, while Alaitoc gains eyes throughout the galaxy. The intelligence network created by these scouts makes Alaitoc exceptionally well-informed about galactic events, typically providing advanced warning of threats. Alaitoc fields more rangers than any other Craftworld, with their pathfinders representing the elite among them. These exceptional snipers cause havoc among enemy forces, picking off commanders with pinpoint accuracy from impossible distances. Imperial commanders describe fighting Alaitoc forces as hunting ghosts, a perfect description for opponents who strike before being seen. A Pathfinder's well-placed shot can accomplish what might otherwise require a full military engagement. This robust intelligence network also allows Alaitoc to maintain flexible connections with Exodites and Corsairs when advantageous, creating temporary alliances that more isolated Craftworlds struggle to arrange. Their military doctrine perfectly complements this structure, specializing in long-range combat, ambushes, and precision strikes that capitalize on superior intelligence. A typical Alaitoc campaign begins long before main forces arrive. Rangers weaken enemy positions, sabotage infrastructure, and eliminate key personnel. By the time the Craftworld's primary forces engage, the enemy is often already in disarray, fighting an opponent that knows their every weakness. This approach proved devastatingly effective during the Imperial Siege of Alaitoc itself. When Imperial forces attempted to invade, they encountered a defensive campaign showcasing tactical brilliance. Advanced laser technology decimated the Imperial Navy fleet, while inside the Craftworld, Bone Singers manipulated the living Wraithbone structure to trap invading infantry. The defense mobilized everything at Alaitoc's disposal, from Guardian forces to all aspect shrines and their mightiest war machines. The avatar of Kayla Mencha Kane strode into battle alongside powerful Phantom Titans. 3 legendary Phoenix Lords, Baharath, Magun Ra, and Karandras, arrived to offer aid, demonstrating the respect Alaitoc commands among their greatest Eldar heroes. This victory wasn't surprising to Alaitoc's leadership. Their Farseers had predicted the ultimate defeat of the Imperial offensive before it began, allowing them to prepare the perfect defense with forces positioned exactly where needed at critical moments. The conflict with the Imperium stems from a cycle of mistrust. Imperial authorities often blame Alaitoc for raids against their shipping. The Inquisition's brutal interrogation methods when capturing Alaitoc citizens has deepened hostility between these factions, creating a self-perpetuating cycle where Rangers serve as both intelligence gatherers and harbingers of retaliatory strikes. The relationship between the Craftworld and its wandering children is complex. While Rangers have left Alaitoc's strict confines, many maintain strong connections to home, frequently returning when needed and undertaking dangerous missions on behalf of the Craftworld. This willing service despite exile demonstrates Rangers haven't rejected their people, just the confines of rigid social structure. Alaitoc's brilliance lies in transforming what seems like a weakness, the exodus of talented individuals, into their greatest strength. This apparent contradiction creates perfect balance. Extreme structure ensures stability and preservation of Eldar culture, while freedom granted to Rangers provides adaptability and constant intelligence. Their system combines the best aspects of rigid tradition and flexible innovation, embodying Alaitoc's philosophy of precision over brute force. Lesser Craftworlds, Part 1. The 5 major Craftworlds might dominate Eldar history, but they're just a tip of a very ancient and very deadly iceberg. Beyond Ulthwé, Biel-tan, Lyanden, Saim-Hann, and Alaitoc lies a constellation of lesser-known Craftworlds with survival strategies that make even the Pathfinders' precision look conventional. From manipulating time itself to voluntarily entering the Eye of Terror. Let's start with Ulthwé, whose name translates to Knowledge of Blood. Located near their multiple chaos-infested worlds, their society has transformed into a permanent war machine. Their emerald and white warriors have become specialists in fighting demons, developing anti-war tactics, and weapons designed specifically to banish demonic entities. During the Corpse Haven massacre, Ulthwé forces held back the tide of Nurgle's servants for 17 days without reinforcement, their specialized training proving decisive against overwhelming odds. Altansar presents an even more extreme case of resilience against chaos. This Craftworld, marked by deep red and black colors, was swallowed by the Eye of Terror during the fall. For 10 millennia, they were considered lost, until Phoenix Lord Magun Ra located his former home within the very realm of chaos and led survivors back into real space. The Eldar who emerged were changed. They speak rarely, move with unnatural stillness, and hide their faces behind masks. At the Battle of Blackstar, Altansar warriors walked unharmed through warp fire that melted even ceramite, displaying supernatural resistance to chaos influences that leaves other Eldar deeply suspicious. Emlock is focused on technological superiority for survival. Their red and gray halls house the most sophisticated forges in Eldar civilization, where Bone Singers have pushed Wraithbone applications to new frontiers. The artificers of Yemlock produce war machines of unparalleled sophistication, including unique variants of standard vehicles. During the siege of Hauptstim, a single Emlock super heavy grav tank disabled an entire Imperial Titan maniple, using technology even the Craftworlds don't comprehend. 40k lore represents perhaps the strangest approach to survival through self-imposed isolation. They've developed technology creating a temporal distortion field where time flows differently inside its boundaries. Visitors age decades in what feels like minutes, while inhabitants experience time at a dramatically slowed rate. When Imperial envoys attempted diplomatic contact in M41, only one returned, aged 50 years though absent only 3 days, bearing cryptic messages in an archaic Eldar dialect. Similarly, Mimera chose concealment as their protection. For thousands of years, they remained hidden, with other Eldar believing them destroyed. Their silver and blue forces revealed themselves only when they emerged to recover the Spirit Stone of Phoenix Lord Irilith. Their military specializes in aerial combat, with sophisticated stealth aircraft that even Imperial augur arrays cannot detect. At Petalis 3, Mimera flyers decimated an entire Imperial Navy squadron without registering a single Auspex. Luganath, Light of Fallen Suns, with striking orange and blue colors, has essentially abandoned hope in the material realm. They've formed a close alliance with the Harlequins, who serve the laughing god Sagorak. Leganath actively searches for the legendary webway port of Slaanesh, believing it leads to the Black Library. Their ultimate goal is relocating their entire population permanently into the webway, establishing a realm safe from Slaanesh. Finally, Yggdrasil offers a path dominated by female warriors who worship Morai Haig, the crone goddess of fate and death. Their blue and white forces are led exclusively by female autarchs, commanding the largest contingent of howling banshees of any craftworld. What truly distinguishes them are unique rituals allowing seers to directly commune with ancestral spirits, creating a society where the dead have almost as much influence as the living. During the Ghost Moon Conclave, Banshee Exarchs channeled the battle knowledge of warriors 10,000 years dead, executing combat maneuvers lost since before the fall. Each of these lesser craftworlds represents a distinct evolutionary branch of Eldar survival, their dispersed approaches forming a tapestry of innovation born from desperation and resilience. The Pass: Cultural Diversity Among Craftworlds. These desperate innovations for survival are woven into the very fabric of Eldar psychology. The Paths system is a psychological failsafe mechanism designed to prevent another catastrophic birth of a chaos entity. Think about it, an entire civilization structured around making sure your emotions don't literally tear a hole in reality. That's everyday life for Craftworld Eldar. What's fascinating is how differently each Craftworld interprets this psychological safeguard. Like diverging lanes on a cosmic highway. On Ulthwé, the constant psychic pressure from their proximity to literal hell has reshaped their entire path system. While most craftworlds treat the path of the seer as a specialized calling for the gifted few, Ulthwé has expanded it into a central pillar of their society. Young Eldar with even modest psychic potential are guided toward divination training, creating what outsiders describe as a society of fortune tellers. Their council chambers buzz with competing visions of possible futures, and their artists incorporate prophetic elements into their work. Biel-tan takes the opposite approach, channeling potentially dangerous passions into controlled combat scenarios. Their society has institutionalized the path of the warrior, with most citizens training in multiple aspect shrines throughout their lives. This produces a population that understands war from multiple perspectives. A typical Biel-tan citizen might spend decades mastering the disciplined rage of the striking scorpions, then shift to the calculated precision of the Dark Reapers, giving them a comprehensive understanding of warfare that makes their coordinated actions terrifyingly effective. Ian Den represents perhaps the most tragic transformation of the path system. After the Tyranid devastation left them critically underpopulated, necessity forced a radical restructuring. Paths once chosen freely became assigned based on urgent need. The path of command, typically reserved for seasoned veterans, now falls to relatively inexperienced Eldar simply because there's no one else left. Most disturbing is their expanded path of the Spirit Seer. While other craftworlds might have a few dozen specialists communing with the dead, Lyanden has trained hundreds, creating an eerie society where the boundary between the living and dead has grown increasingly thin. Saim-Hann's clan structure creates a fascinating hybrid approach. Their pre-fall tribal traditions allow for greater emotional expression, channeling potentially dangerous passions into ritual competitions and clan rivalries. A young wild rider might simultaneously walk a path while participating in clan rituals that would be considered dangerously unstructured elsewhere, yet Saim-Hann remains stable through this cultural balancing act. Alaitoc has taken the path system to its logical extreme, enforcing its structures with unmatched severity. Their interpretation leaves virtually no room for individual expression outside one's current path. This suffocating rigidity explains why so many young Alaitoc choose the path of the outcast, becoming rangers who roam the galaxy in self-imposed exile. Ironically, this exodus has created a sophisticated external support network that makes Alaitoc stronger. Lesser craftworlds have developed their own variations. Emlock has expanded the path of the Artificer into a dozen distinct sub-disciplines, each focusing on different aspects of wraith bone manipulation. Meanwhile, Brasil has developed female-only warrior paths connected to the worship of Morai Heg, creating battle disciplines that incorporate ritual sacrifice unavailable elsewhere. The consequences of straying from these psychological safeguards can be catastrophic, much like the fall itself, but on an individual scale. Those who become too absorbed in a single path risk becoming lost. Warriors who cannot leave the combat behind become exarchs, donning sacred armor that gradually consumes their identity until they're little more than living weapons. Worse still are those who abandon the paths entirely without proper structure. They risk becoming consumed by their passions, potentially feeding the very entity their ancestors accidentally created. The diversity of these approaches demonstrates the psychological ingenuity of the Eldar. Each craftworld has essentially conducted a millennia-long experiment in managing their dangerous emotional potential. This cultural diversity might actually be crucial to Eldar survival, providing multiple models that can be adapted as circumstances change. A rigid society like Alaitoc might weather threats that would tear apart Saim-Hann's more fluid structure, while Biel-tan's warrior culture provides templates for resistance that Emlock's artificers could never develop. And so, we reach the end of our journey through the Craftworlds, these magnificent but tragic vessels drifting through the void. The Eldar's story embodies the core theme of Warhammer 40k, a civilization facing the consequences of its past while struggling against overwhelming odds. Each craftworld has forged its own path to survival, from Ulthwé's prophetic vigilance to Biel-tan's martial zeal. This diversity ensures they don't share a single point of failure. In the darkness of the 41st millennium, the Eldar endure, a lone farseer gazing into the void, glimpsing both doom and possibility. Whatever threats emerge from the shadows, their ancient race remains poised to meet them.